Hey, thanks for joining me today for this presentation of AllyDVM. AllyDVM is one of the things that I consider to be one of the most important communication tools you can use in your practice. And just a little bit of an introduction about me. My name is Trisha Rentz, and I am one of the regional managers here in Georgia for Pet Vet Care Centers. I was in a practice as a manager and a registered veterinary technician for over 30 years. My practice was purchased by Pet Vet back in 2016. So I've been through the process of acquisition, I've been a practice manager, and now I'm a regional manager. So a lot of the information that I'm going to be giving in this presentation is really speaking directly to the managers and the CSRs on how to use AllyDVM, and a lot of the information that I'm going to give you actually comes from real life hospital experience. So this is something that we have used in my practice, and it's something that we have found to be very, very successful. So going forward, let's talk about some of the actual tools that AllyDVM provides to us. I know that I can speak from experience. When AllyDVM was first brought into my practice, we really didn't use it as it was intended to be used. We basically used it mostly for service reminders, and we didn't really understand the importance of the tools available to us. So that's part of what we're going to do today. I want to set up some expectations and let you know what we expect in terms of your usage. So as we go through these different things, there's definitely going to be action steps that are mandatory for you to take, and we will set up some tracking systems and some goal setting by the end of the presentation, so you'll know what it is that you are required to do and what your CSRs are required to do. So one of the most important things as far as CSR action steps has to deal with the retention calendar. So the retention calendar is basically just a data collection and correction platform that you use. It's going to help you to get all the correct data for emails, cell numbers, home addresses. Also helps you to make sure that you have updated reminders or reminders in place for every patient that comes in, and also helps you look through all the other pets that are due without having to go into the practice management system. So speaking from experience, I have to attest to the fact that when this was first presented to me in office, I thought, we already do that. We get those, we correct those, we do that in our practice management system. There's no reason to have a second platform for that. And I really believe that. When we started really utilizing that retention calendar and going in and looking at the statistics, one of the things I realized was that, wow, we're really not using it like we thought we were. And AllyDVM tracks that and has a way of showing that. So it really made a very large impact on me to realize how much of this stuff was slipping by without our attention. Something else that AllyDVM does is client surveys and NPS scores. This is something that's really important for you to track in terms of customer service. Also sends out appointment reminders. So one of the things that is super, super important to ensuring that our business stays strong and that we get these appointments in and do our jobs as a CSR is to make sure that people come in for their appointments. One of the unique things that AllyDVM does is it actually makes a lot of that easier for you. It's going to send out emails. It's going to send out texts. It's going to make it so much easier so that you don't have to call every single person to remind them of an appointment. The other thing that it allows clients to do is through your website, go in and make appointment requests. In this day and age, everybody's really busy, and a lot of people really like that functionality of this platform. Refill requests are also something that it does and allows you to maybe have a few less phone calls in the practice. Service reminders. All of us are familiar with service reminders. These are things like your vaccines, your exams, pro-heart injections, those types of things. This is something that really goes on in the background that you don't have to do. And as far as AllyDVM goes, most of you are already using this function. This is something that's set up automatically by Julie Alford when you first join Pet Vet, and it handles all your reminders for you. Something that's very important to make sure that you understand, our reminder system is only as good as the information that we have. So if we don't have the correct email or the cell number or the home address, our reminder system really doesn't do any good. So that's, again, the importance of that retention calendar. Something else that I have found to be super helpful is the direct message via text and email tool. That's something that I know I've got some clinics that use that quite frequently and some that don't use it at all. In this day and age, texting is becoming more and more the accepted method of communication, and it provides us a way to send out communications to our clients via text, which we've proven is typically responded to faster and actually read. Promotional emails. So you guys are probably familiar with the promotional emails that we do. Those are the emails that Julie Alford does once a month for your clinic. It's pretty easy. It's done, it's very streamlined. There's not really any action steps that you have to take other than entering in discount codes. And then last but not least, there's reporting. So there's a lot of reports that AllyDVM can provide for you. Reports that discuss lapsed patients, missing emails, people who opted out, bad addresses, things like that. So we're going to start going through each of these tools separately so that we can talk about how exactly they work, what the expectations are, and what you should see in your practice. So here's one of the things that we want to talk about as far as a daily duty. So the retention calendar works on a system of alerts, and we'll go over all the different alert types. But it's very important to understand that this system was designed to be utilized in addition to your practice management system. Okay, it's a separate platform. I know it's a separate portal. I always like to joke and say here at PetVet we love our portals, and we certainly do. And this is a platform that's not intended to be shut down and brought back up every once in a while. Going forward, the expectation is that AllyDVM should be pulled up on all of your computers all day, every day. It should be used in addition to your practice management system. Okay, we're going to talk about some of the reasons for that. I alluded to that a little bit earlier, to the fact that we're not doing as good of a job as we thought they were. Okay, you need to address every single alert. Again, this is an expectation. As far as a CSR goes, this really is part of your job description. It's your responsibility to make sure that we have the correct information, the correct data in our practice management system. And this retention calendar in AllyDVM is going to allow you to do that a lot easier. And it's also going to track, and we're going to be able to view statistics to see how good of a job we're doing, and how much better you guys are going to start doing when you actually start using the retention calendar. So updating alerts, one of the reasons why we do this, keeping these alerts updated is going to promote quality care and the client experience. If we don't let people know that their pets are due, we're not communicating and we're not doing our jobs, okay? If we don't have the right data, we can't communicate. So again, cannot make this clear enough. It is mandatory that AllyDVM be kept up on all your computers and used in addition to your practice management system. And you should be ensuring that every alert is addressed, okay? If it's undocumented, it didn't happen. So I hear this story a lot, and I also said this same story myself. I really honestly believed we are good at checking emails. We are good at checking addresses. We are good at checking cell numbers. The fact is we're really not. When I start showing you some of these statistics, you're going to realize we're not doing what we think we are doing. So this documents that we're checking it. It makes sure it happens, and it documents and tracks with statistical information that can prove that we're actually doing this part of our job. So let's go over some of the alert types, okay? There's going to be the paw print. So a paw print is going to be found on the retention calendar. And if you see this, it indicates that another pet in the client family is past due for services. So one of the expectations, what we're asking you to do is when you see that paw print, go ahead and ask the client if he or she can bring the other pet in, and go ahead and get that future appointment scheduled, okay? That's mandatory. That's what the purpose of these alerts are, to let you know that there is another pet past due, and that's the expectation. The second type of alert is going to be a bell. When you see a bell, that's going to indicate that a scheduled pet is missing a reminder-related service. So that's the pet that's actually there in your practice that day, and it's showing that there's no vaccine history, or there's no exam, or basically no future reminders. Every single pet that comes into your practice should have a minimum of 2 reminders going forward. That's how we get them back in the practice. Okay, so it's an easy alert to satisfy. Ask the client when they're there. If it's a new client, do they have records from somewhere else? If they don't, it's okay. We can start over. If they're there for vaccines, your system should be set up to where it automatically adds those in. If not, we need to make sure that it is. And sometimes they're just there for a skin infection or an ear infection. And we do a really good job of maybe copying and scanning the records, but we're not actually getting those reminders in. So you need to put those reminders in if you have these bells show up. The last alert type is your email, cell, and home address. These are the easiest alerts in there to handle. It basically just indicates that we either don't have one of these items, or it's a bad or invalid item. It's important to understand that all 3 of these items need to be in your practice management system. We need to have all 3 channels to communicate through. Effective communication with clients ensures that we're giving quality care and a consistent marketing message. There are some people out there that use email. Some people use cell phones. Some people prefer home address. And guess what? We don't know what their preference is. So we have to make sure that we're hitting all 3 avenues to make sure that we're communicating with them appropriately and reminding them about the services their pets are due for. Okay, you can see right there, there's an example of what the actual alerts look like on the retention calendar. So let's talk about something else in the retention calendar that can be very, very useful for you. One of the things that I know when we really started using it, we expected everybody in their practice to be asking the questions and satisfying alerts. We'll talk more as the slides go on about how to actually satisfy an alert so that it shows in your statistics. So one of the things that's really helpful on the retention calendar is this little talk bubble. If you click on that bubble by the patient's name, it gives you an area where you can put notes. So say, Dino's owners, Mrs. Smith, come in, and you've already discussed that she has other pets past due. Maybe she declines it today. Maybe she says, no, I don't have those pets anymore. Or maybe she accepted it. Whatever the case may be, go ahead and go in and mark that information in the retention activities with a note and your initials, okay? That way, say the pet's staying for a couple of days and then they go home. Anybody else that goes in behind you can see that you've already asked the question. It's documented in there. You're handling the alert. And that way they don't keep inundating the client with the same questions over and over that have already been answered. Just saves you a little bit of time and makes you look, definitely more efficient and more organized to your clients. Okay, let's talk about how to actually satisfy an alert. So an alert is satisfied on the calendar, and you'll be able to see that it turns blue. They usually show up in black. Once it is satisfied, it will turn blue and show up in your statistics as satisfied. If it's invalidated, so if an alert becomes invalid, it's just going to be removed from the retention calendar altogether. And if it's ignored, in other words, nothing is done, it's going to remain black and it will be counted against you in your statistics. So you can see right here, this is what it looks like. If it's blue, it's handled. You don't have to worry about it. If it's not blue, you need to do something to satisfy that alert. So here's the good part. How do we actually satisfy that alert? This is going to be very important for you to know because it is going to be tracked and it's something that you are going to be held accountable for. So for the paw prints, if you make an appointment for the pet, and remember, the paw prints are for other pets in the family that might have services due, and we're asking you to go ahead and forward book that appointment. If you do that, it's going to automatically satisfy the alert. The next time there's a sync with AllyDVM, which happens pretty frequently, it's going to turn blue. So again, it's not instantaneous, but normally within 5 to 10 minutes, that alert is going to turn blue, and you're going to see that it's been satisfied. If the reminder is no longer past due or due in the next 30 days, okay, this can be accomplished by changing the reminder due date, deleting the reminder, or suspending the individual reminder. So sometimes people come in and maybe the reminder is faulty and we just delete it. Maybe the date is wrong and we change it. So as long as you do that in the practice management system, it's automatically going to change in AllyDVM. So there's nothing that you have to do in AllyDVM itself. It's all automatic. You just make those changes in your practice management system, okay? Now remember the bell. The bell is going to let us know that you have a pet or the pet that's there today with less than 2 reminders, so he doesn't have reminders set up. All you have to do is put reminders in, and it's going to satisfy that bell. So again, if they're there for vaccines, it should be automatic in your system. It's going to set that reminder up. If not, you need to get the information. You need to enter that manually. So the next 3 pretty much all work the same thing. Invalid missing email, cell phone, bad physical address. If it's an email, it's got the little mail. Cell phone has the phone, and the bad physical address has the home. The alerts are all going to be satisfied when you enter it into your practice management system and it's valid. It's all you have to do. Just get the information in your system. It's going to satisfy that alert, okay? We'll talk a little bit more about what to do because there have been occasions where it'll come back and it'll show that it's still invalid after you've already corrected that. So we'll talk about that in the next email. So for cell phones, it's super, super important that you make sure the actual cell phone is in the appropriate field in the practice management system. A lot of people use their cell phone as their home number. If it's in the home number field, it's not going to count that as satisfied. It also will not send out text reminders if it's in that. It has to be in the mobile field. So that's something that you definitely need to be aware of, okay? So I mentioned before that sometimes AllyDVM does not recognize a valid home address or email address. This can be very frustrating, especially if you have clients that come in very frequently and you continue asking every single time and they continue to say, I told you last time that was correct. So it can be very frustrating on both parts. So what you can do, if you verify an address with the client but it continues to show as invalid, put in the extended zip code in your practice management system, and that will 9 times out of 10 satisfy the alert. Most of the time, people don't know what their extended zip code is. All you have to do is go to USPS.com. There's a quick tools tab and look up zip code to get the extended zip and put that in your practice management system. That should satisfy that alert. For any email addresses, you're probably going to have this more common as far as showing bad, bounced, or dropped. Go ahead and email the client from your email and ask for them to reply so that we can definitely verify that it is indeed valid and no longer bouncing. When they reply to you, all you have to do is forward that email to support@AllyDVM, and they can go ahead and get it where it's verified in your system and it'll show as a correct email address. That way we know that they're getting their service reminders and we don't have to continue to bug them about it every time they come to the practice. So just want to show you and remind you one more time about how important it is to make sure that the client's cell phone number is in the right location and in the appropriate field in your practice management system. So if you have any questions, you just need to verify with AllyDVM the correct location. So I know for Cornerstone, DVM Manager, Intravet, and VIA, what they're looking for is it to say text, cell, or mobile. In Advantage, Avamark, and VTech, it's going to pull from the actual mobile or cell field. And for Infinity, it's going to pull from the first custom field that looks like a cell phone number. So you just want to make sure that you verify and that these are correct. I know a lot of people actually use their mobile as their home, and you may have it in the home field, but if it's not in the actual field that AllyDVM pulls for that's considered a mobile number, they're not going to get their text reminders, okay? So let's make sure that all team members are trained on this, and they're trained on how to use AllyDVM, and that they're using it for every single client. I definitely have found that the practices that do the best are actually assigning specific champions to make sure that AllyDVM is utilized to the fullest. I know from being a manager myself that it can be really time consuming. There's always tons of stuff to be done, and this is something that can fall down on your priority list. And we want this to be a top priority for you guys. And again, assign a champion. It's going to help you, and it's going to help the practice. Just remember that correct, up-to-date information is the key to the success of your reminder system, and that this is a big part of it. So let's talk about goals. It's very important that you set goals for addressing alerts and that you track them daily. I know a lot of times, and again, this comes from past experience, we have these great ideas and we implement a new program and we assume that everybody's on board and everybody acts like they're on board, and they may well be. But then we get back to our day-to-day habits and our day-to-day routine, and things don't necessarily happen, or they fall by the wayside. So that's why it's very important to anything that we do, whether it be AllyDVM or any other type of thing that we're trying to implement new program-wise, that we make sure that we track it and that we follow up on it. So going forward, we want you to be addressing these alerts and tracking it daily and discussing it with your team. Again, managers, this is something that you can do, or this is something, if you have a champion assigned to it, that they can do. But ultimately, the managers are responsible for making sure that this gets done. And it will be something that is going to be on your conference agenda and that you'll be discussing weekly with your regional manager on your conference call. So it's very easy to find. The results, the statistics are under reports. Just select retention calendar stats and enter the date for the time frame that you're looking for. And it's going to pull up these statistics for you. So listed below are a set of goals that we want you to achieve. In my opinion, I think they're kind of low, but we want them to be attainable. And we've seen from experience with other practices that not only can we attain these goals, but we can far exceed them. So for paw prints, the goal is 10% of the alerts are satisfied. So that's the lowest number because the paw prints do tend to be the most difficult. The reason for that is the patient's not there in the practice. Remember, the paw prints are for patients who belong to the same client but are who are not actually there in the building. So these are forward booked appointments, and they're a little bit harder to achieve. For bells, it's 25%. The bells should be a little bit easier to do. That's just making sure that the patient that's actually there in the building has 2 reminders when it leaves set up for 2 remindable services going forward. And we're already in their account. We're already should be reviewing compliance issues. So that's why that's at 25%. Now, email sales and addresses, that's the absolute easiest thing to get. That's just data and information that you can get from your clients. So we expect that to be at least 50%. You can look and see by the percentage done that we're nowhere near what those goals should be. So again, this was a practice where I thought we did a really good job of collecting this information and doing that. We talked about it in staff meetings. Everybody knew they were supposed to do it. My assumption was that it was getting done. And my incorrect assumption at first was, why do we need a different platform to do this? We already do this. That's just an additional step. Well, it was really pretty eye-opening when I went in and looked at these retention statistics, looked at this alert tracking statistics to see that, you know what, we're really not doing it like we thought we were. I have probably got 15 clinics that I'm tracking every single week on this and looking at it. And it's amazing the difference that they're doing now and prior to knowing what the expectations were as far as AllyDVM and actually using that retention calendar. So here's an example. Some of you guys may not use the same conference agenda spreadsheet. I know we use it a lot in the Southeast. But this is an example of the spreadsheet that I use for my weekly tracking. And this shows the AllyDVM particular tab where we actually track AllyDVM. So as you can see on here, there's a spot for pets past due, and this just shows you where the information comes from. So your pets past due is 104. Out of that 104, 5 alerts were actually satisfied for a 5% rate. So there's missing reminders, missing emails, missing cells, and invalid email addresses. So you just pull these numbers. These are your to-dos. Right there with the green triangle is how many was actually done. And then right there shows your percentage. That 5% is with a hexagon is going to show you how many were actually done as a percentage-wise. So these numbers are found in AllyDVM, again, under that retentions report, and you just select it for the fiscal week. So if you're in my area or you're in an area that's using these conference agenda Excel spreadsheet, that's where you're going to get that information from. So let's talk about appointment reminders. That's another tool of AllyDVM where AllyDVM automatically sends appointment reminders out to your clients via text or email. As they respond back to either one of these, it's going to appear as confirmed in your retention calendar. Unconfirmed appointments, it's very important that you review these. If they've not been confirmed, then you actually need to make a phone call the day prior. And mark these confirmed in your practice management system so that AllyDVM will show it confirmed. So receptionist, this needs to be on a daily checklist for you guys, okay? Every single day before you leave, every single appointment should have at least been made an attempt to confirm. And there's a couple of different ways to do this. You can discuss it with your manager and how they'd like you to do this. But any appointment that's unconfirmed, you need to be reaching out to them a day prior, okay? So we send these out automatically via text and email. Hopefully, as long as you have the correct information, you've got the text or the cell number in the right slot, the clients are going to get this and hopefully respond back to you. And it'll appear confirmed, so that's less that you have to do. But the ones that aren't done, the expectation is for you to go ahead and do those. If they call and confirm, or if they once you've made the actual physical phone call, if you mark it confirmed in your practice management system, it'll automatically speak to AllyDVM and show it confirmed. Again, if the client responds back through the AllyDVM text or email, it'll automatically do it for you. No action is needed on you. It'll just show that it's confirmed, okay? Another expectation that you need to put on your daily checklist is how to handle missed appointments. Every single appointment that's missed, whether it be a grooming appointment, a check ear appointment, a vaccine appointment, a surgical appointment, if a client misses an appointment, you need to be reaching out to them, asking them to reschedule. This is a super easy way to do it is by the text service in AllyDVM. You can create templates that say, hey, your patient missed a very important appointment today. Please call us to reschedule. Just to let them know and hopefully get them to go ahead and call in and reschedule. I have found that most people don't answer their phones very well. I know if I don't know the number, I don't answer my cell phone either. But if they get a text and it shows them that, they have a lot greater chance of hitting that reply back or hitting the call button back to automatically call you to get that rescheduled. This has to be done on a daily basis, okay? So managers, it's your responsibility to set up a protocol at your practice to make sure that appointment confirmation calls are being done and that missed appointments are being called. This is something that we can go in and we can look at AllyDVM and check and see how good of a job you're doing on this. Managers, it's something that we expect you to train and track. So again, this presentation is mostly about expectation and what we really want you guys to do going forward. So this slide here is just an example, or it's the actual service reminder cadence. There's not really any action that you have to take on this. We just want you to be aware of when we're sending out and how often we're sending out communications to the clients, okay? So on the left, it shows the name of the reminder. This comes out in that report that Julie sends you guys once a week to show how many reminders went out of each kind. So you can see the next column is the type of communication. So it goes back and forth, email, direct mail, email, direct mail, email, direct mail. You can see that there's no texting on here. I personally believe that texting is the way to go. We do have the ability to text out service reminders, not just appointment reminders. So if you're interested in setting up your practice for your clients to receive text messages, then definitely get with your regional manager and see if this is something that you can get coordinated. So the communication timing, these are the next two things. You can see that we start 6 weeks before the appointment, 4 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks after the appointment, 4 weeks after, and on down to 8 weeks after the appointment. And when it says appointment, it doesn't mean they actually have an appointment on your book. That's just when the service itself is due. So it's a little bit confusing in the fact that it says appointment. It really should say before services are due. Once they get 8 weeks past the point of their service being due, they're considered past due at that point. Okay, some more information about the actual service reminders. So if you're going to add texting, what I have found seems to be the best is if you add it 2 weeks prior to the due date. Again, make sure your cell numbers are in the appropriate location in your practice management system or it's not going to do you any good. I also think it's another good idea for texting to be added 2 weeks past when the appointment or when the service was due. I think that makes it down to the closest time. People know their schedules, and the hope is that they'll go ahead when they get that text and hit the callback number and call you to set up that appointment. So something else that you need to do is you need to be handling and making sure that you have a process in place for your returned postcards. If you get a postcard that's returned, so you have an invalid home physical address, you need to call the client and update that address and also inform them that the pet is due. Something else that we've found to be very, very helpful is go ahead and clean up your database. Okay, so AllyDVM utilizes your practice management system database to collect correct contact information. If you haven't cleaned out your database in a while, it's something that you really want to do. So any client or patient who has not been in, has no history for the past 4 years, go ahead and inactivate them. Most systems have a way of, or practice management systems have a way to do this automatically. It's not typically something that you have to manually go in and do. So if you're not aware of how to do this, just reach out to tech support for your software system, and they should be able to walk you through it. Something else that you need to do in the PIMS or your practice management information system is make sure that you set up automatic reminders for pets. I don't know that every single system has the ability to do that. I know that Avamark does, and I'm pretty sure that Cornerstone does too. So this means when you put a patient in, it'll look at their age, and it'll go ahead and set up reminders for what you guys think are important. Most people do at least a wellness exam, a rabies, and the distemper parvo, okay? Or for cats, the FERCP vaccine. Go ahead and make that automatic. So they at least have something in there. Yes, we want to get the dates, but they may not have ever had vaccines done. Say they're there, and this is probably a lot of the people that come in that end up not leaving reminders. Say they come in with a sick patient. Okay, we're not going to worry about a rabies vaccine today. We're worried about the dog vomiting or whatever it is that they have going on. But it's very important to make sure that you set up a future reminder for them, because when that dog gets well, when this client has spent, an amount of money to get their pet fixed, we want to make sure that they stay healthy, and they're not going to do that if they don't come in for their vaccinations. So we want to make sure that those are added in for every pet as well, and it helps if you can make it automatic. Okay, so reminders can be things for vaccines, wellness exams, pro heart injections, heart rhythm tests, fecal test, wellness blood work, dental reminders, whatever your practice deems is important needs to be set up as a remindable service. Now, here's something that's super, super important to know, and that's why it's in red on here. If you set up a new remindable service in your practice management system, you have to notify Julie Alford to select it for AllyDVM to remind for it. I was under the assumption from the beginning when we first got AllyDVM that anything that's set up correctly in my practice management system would be pulled from AllyDVM automatically. That is not the case. Julie has to manually go in and select what to remind for, okay? So when we set up AllyDVM, we do a really good job. Usually there's a conversation with Julie. We send her a list of templates that we want reminded on. But as time goes on, there's always things that we enter. Something new that you guys may be putting in right now is ProHeart 12. So that's a new product that's come out. It's a serviceable reminder. If you're adding in ProHeart 12, You've got to make sure that when you get those codes in, you reach out to Julie Alford by email, let her know that you have new codes that need to be reminded on. If you don't, then your reminders won't go out. So there's a report, if you feel like you've done this or you're not really sure, there's a report that Julie can get to you. It's really easy. It only takes a few minutes. It's not that big of a deal to get it to you. That's going to show all the reminders that AllyDVM is pulling for your practice to remind on. So we really highly suggest that you do this at least minimally once a quarter to make sure that all of your reminders are being reminded on, okay? So again, we talked about the cadence, and we talked about once pets go past the 8-week point, we are not sending them any more reminders, whether it be by text or by email or by postcard. So this is typically when you get that report once a week that, again, Julie Alford sends out. It's a pet's past due report. It is mandatory that every single client get an actual phone call at that point, reminding them that their pet is past due. Okay, so managers, we expect you to make sure that this happens. On the conference agenda sheets, on my sheets, there's a slot that asks how many came back past due, how many did you actually call, and you need to make sure that that's happening. I can't tell you how many managers I talk to that say, oh yeah, I give it to the front desk and they do it. And there's been practices where I've gone behind the front desk and there's reports back from 3 months ago that still haven't been called that are just sitting in a folder. So this is one of those things to put on your to-do checklist that by the end of the week, so they come out on Monday, by Friday, all of those phone calls should have been made at that point. And managers, this is your responsibility to hold people accountable. Make sure that that's happening, okay? And it's something else, again, to discuss on your phone call with your regional once a week, okay? A very, very important part of the job to make sure that we're getting these clients to come in and take care of their pets. So another tool through AllyDVM is the appointment and prescription request, okay? Another reason why AllyDVM should remain open on all of your computers. So these requests come through our online pharmacy, and that pharmacy is located, usually if you have that, on your website. So when clients go to your website, they click on your pharmacy, AllyDVM is the platform that it comes through. These need to be responded to, and the same thing for appointment requests, which also come through your website. You need to respond to these immediately, okay? I've got a lot of clinics that maybe only one person knows how to do it. That person goes on vacation, and we go in and look, and we have a backlog of appointment requests and prescription requests. Guys, this is not good customer service. In fact, that's really, really horrible customer service, and very, very frustrating for the clients. So this is a communication tool that we provide for them, and we have to make sure that we're responding to it quickly and efficiently. So again, another reason it needs to be up all the time, because you need to be constantly addressing these requests. On the end of day checklist, and you can tell I'm a big checklist person because I keep using the term checklist. I can't remember things if I don't have one. I think it's a very good idea to implement in your practice a checklist for every single area. And the checklists are things that need to be done every single day before leaving the building, just to make sure that we don't leave anything to chance and that nothing falls between the cracks. This needs to be on your checklist. Before the CSRs or anybody leave by the end of the day, these appointment and prescription requests should be responded to, okay? So again, that's an expectation, and managers, you need to make sure that you have some type of protocol set up so we can ensure that this gets done. All right, so let's talk about surveys and NPS scores. So it, to me, is one of the most valuable tools that I look at in terms of customer service, are these surveys and NPS scores. And I'm really surprised at how many practices I go into or how many managers I talk to that don't look at this every single day. If you want to know what your clients think and how your practice is doing, this is an easy way to do it that doesn't require any solicitation from your part. It's something that we automatically send out. So PetVet, after a client comes and visits your practice, we send these surveys out automatically after every visit when they come in. And these reports, all you have to do is go to reports and Net Promoter Score, and it's going to show you what the client said, if there's comments, they're going to give you a score. There's two different scores that you're going to find on there. One is your average survey score, and that's basically a 1 to 10. So if a client gives you a 2, and then a client gives you a 10, and then a client gives you a 5, hopefully they're giving you all 8, 9s, and 10s. But they average that score together so that you can see over whatever period or amount of time you want to look at. So say that you think customer service has been really gone downhill. Maybe you got a new receptionist, or maybe a great technician left, or something like that, and you want to look at a specific time frame. You can do that as well. Or you can look at it for the length of the practice and look at what those surveys say, okay? Now, NPS is called Net Promoter Score. That's a little bit different. So that score is taken, and it's on a percentage, like a score, like an A, B, C, or D, like a 90% or 95%. And that's also taken from one particular question on the survey, and that question is, would you refer this practice to one of your friends? NPS is the relationship between clients who are promoters and detractors, okay? So we're going to talk about the different types in just a few minutes when I show you this. But promoters are obviously the ones that are out talking about your practice, telling their friends about it. They're your top clients. The detractors are people who are unhappy with your practice, and they're being vocal about it. Maybe they're on social media. Maybe they're going and doing Yelp reviews or things like that. Those are your detractors, and those are the ones that you really need to be focusing on preventing and trying to move them up to at least a passive person, because they're the ones actively out there hurting your practice, and you want to reward your promoters as well. So the Net Promoter Score is a definite direct correlation between revenue production, okay? If you have a low NPS, you're going to have low revenue. Typically, the clinics that have a high Net Promoter Score are going to have much higher revenue. It's a direct measure of client loyalty, okay? So NPS is something that should be tracked weekly on your conference agenda sheets. And your managers should review and provide these numbers for your regional going in. Something that I ask my team members to do, something that we talk about every week. If there's detractors, through AllyDVM, we go in and we look at their comments. And my expectation is that they've already called that person. And they should already have outlined for me what they did to resolve the issue, or was the client salvageable, or is there something in the future that you're implementing so that we don't have this problem occur again? And sometimes it's not really anything that we did. Sometimes there's just things that are unavoidable, that no matter what you do, you can't win the client back. But we at least have to make that effort to make sure that that we're putting our best foot forward and that we are giving good customer service. For that reason, you should be looking at these surveys every day and responding to any negative reviews immediately. Another good thing that's not on here is that it's a really good idea to go in. I know that we do some automatic responses for Yelp and Google and things like that. It's a really good idea to go in and look at those as well to kind of know where your practice stands. So client survey scores, again, all of this is located under Net Promoter Score. We talked about this. All detractors need to be responded to immediately. You should be documenting it in the client record. Review all the comments, respond to any negative comments. Share the positive and the negative with your staff. It's a really good thing to share at staff meetings. Hey guys, Mrs. Smith had a great, fantastic time. She saw Dr. Ben and really, really loved him. The technician, they said, did a really good job. I think that technician was Teresa. So, hey, good job. Way to go. Okay. But you also need to address the detractors and what's going on. And was there a problem? Is there something that we could have resolved? Okay. So share the good and the bad. This is the best way to make improvements in your practice. So this just shows you where these numbers are located. So on here, you can see that this particular practice has 92% promoters, 5.8% that are just passive, that they're like, either way, don't really care. And then 14% or sorry, I was like, wow, that's high, 1.47 detractors. So their NPS score is 91, and their average survey is 9.71. So this practice is doing a really good job of keeping track and doing good customer service. Okay. So another aspect that I want to talk to you about is this direct message, direct text and email. So we have the ability to send texts and emails directly to the clients without going through your practice management system. So some of you are able to do that through practice management, but not everybody. So for those of you who don't have the ability to do that, it's a great way to do it, especially for texts, okay? So the one thing about it, it's a one-way street. We can send them out communication, but it's not something that they can reply back to. That functionality is available in AllyDVM, but it's extremely, extremely expensive and not something that we're offering at this point. With that being said, it's still a very good way to get certain items communicated about. Things like, medication refills ready. If you missed an appointment, say Fluffy's there for a groom, you can send a quick text, hey, Fluffy's ready to pick up. Say you got a postcard back and you haven't been able to get them by phone, shoot them a quick text. Hey, Fluffy's due for vaccines. We got the postcard back. Did you move? Do we need to change your address? It's just a great way to reach out to your client with a system that we know people have a tendency to look at more frequently. I know in the past, years ago, email was the best way to go. Way before that, postcards were the best way to go. So it's something that's always changing. And as new forms and methods of communication come into play, there's always going to be things that we have to change and do differently. But what we're finding right now is that text messages are typically what people respond to the best. So I highly recommend you implement this in your practice and use this as a communication tool. So let's talk about reports. These reports are something that I like to call what you do when there's nothing to do. Put that on your to-do list. Things to do when you have nothing else to do. So there's a lot of really good reports in there, especially at the slow time of year. Now that Christmas is over, as we start going into January and February, it's a really good time to clean up that database. It's a really good time to start working on getting your clients back in the door. So there's a report in there called Missing and Invalid Emails. So again, if a client actually comes in, the retention calendar is going to catch that. But what about the people who aren't actually coming in? They're not coming in because they're not getting their reminders, maybe, because we don't have correct information. So they're not coming in the door. There's a report that you can run. I highly suggest that you run it monthly. Go ahead and send a text through AllyDVM requesting the correct email address, letting them know, if they're due or not. They may not be due. But it's still a good time to go ahead and get that information from them. You can create a template. You can do it by text. You can create a template so that it's very easy. You just go in, you select the client, you select the template, you send it, you check that person off on your list that it was done. There's also a missing reminder report. So this is, again, you can do this monthly. It's going to address anybody with missing reminders. It's a good time to go through, clean up your database. Maybe they shouldn't be in there anyway. I know a lot of practices that maybe have done a lot of work with maybe rescue groups or fosters or things like that. These may be invalid. You may need to suspend some of them, but if not, you need to find out, you need to look at your records. Maybe they came in for an ear infection in the summer and it's been 12 months and you haven't seen them. You need to be reaching out and letting them know they need to come in for vaccines. And then the same thing with bad addresses. Again, it's very easy to do. Go in, create a template, try to get that done. It's a really good thing to be working on in the slow time to really help make your database more robust and more useful to you. Another area that might be of interest to you, and I hate that this generated revenue tab or report is not on your typical manager site. You have to go through your regional. We actually have access to this. But if you want to know, get some results, some feedback back to your CSRs, it's a really good thing to look at is this revenue generated report. So as AllyDVM is utilized, you should start seeing this grow. Okay, so you can look at this. This was just for the last 7 days. You can see over there, there's just 1 week time frame. They made 3 extra appointments, and these are those appointments that are the paw prints. Remember the appointments of the pets that are past due that we're asking you to go ahead and get those people to book that appointment. So 3 extra appointments in 1 week's time resulted in $1,000 worth of additional revenue. That is huge. 3 appointments equals $1,000. That could be the difference in making your revenue budget, managers, or the difference in not making your payroll budget. So it doesn't take that many extra appointments to actually generate a large amount of revenue, which is why it's so important. So the biggest thing is compliance. You know, with anything that we do, our goal is to make sure that our patients are taken care of, and that compliance is really good because that means the patient's been taken care of. The side effect of that is just happens to be increased revenue, which is good for the business and good for the practice and good at raise time and good when you want, maybe to bring in digital x-ray or other things. So revenue is a part of what we do, and it is something that's really important that we need to pay attention to. So show these numbers, every once in a while, get with your regional and have them pull the numbers for you to see how many extra appointments were made and what that additional revenue actually looks like. Because I promise you, it can be very discouraging as a CSR to try your hardest and to ask every single person, and maybe only 1 out of 20 people complies. Maybe 1 out of 20 people make that appointment. But that might be a $1,000 appointment or a $500 appointment, or that might be the difference in that, in that other patient getting parvo or not because it came in to get its vaccines. So don't be discouraged. I know it's very difficult when you're told no over and over and over again, and you're going to get way more no's than you do yeses, but it doesn't mean that you shouldn't still ask, that you shouldn't be doing your job and doing every single patient the same service, okay? So let's make sure that we're continuing to follow up on that. So promotional emails. I know you guys are familiar with these. We do monthly promotional emails that highlight various services that go out on a monthly basis. This is something that you set up codes in the practice management system. When the promotion comes out, Julie will be sending you the information on that and what to set up in your computer. Just want to make sure that your staff is aware of those promotions and what's happening. Something else that you guys may not be aware that we do is new mover postcards. Again, this is something that you don't have to initiate. It's automatic. Marketing takes care of this for us. They do a really great job on this. So we get a list of clients that are moving into an area, and we send them out postcards offering them $25 off their first exam. So this is for new clients only. You'll set this code up in your practice management system as PVNM for Pet Vet New Mover. Going into 2020, the code will be 20. It was PVNM 19 for this past year. So the last 2 digits are the year that we're in. Something else that's always done are dental discounts. So any postcard that goes out for services also offers $25 off a dental procedure. All service reminders include this offer, okay? So if a client mentions it or brings it up, then it's okay to go ahead and give them that $25 off, and you set up the code as Dental 20. Last but not least, the other automatic promotional email that goes out are your lapsed customer mailers. So a lapsed customer who's someone who has not visited your practice in over 16 months. So they've not responded to reminders, they've not responded to our phone calls. We're in jeopardy of losing this client at this point and then going somewhere else. So we want to make sure that we're retaining these clients. So this is when we set up or we send out, when it shows up in our system, a $20 off your appointment when they schedule it. So it gives them that little bit of incentive to go ahead and call and make that appointment. And the setup code in your practice management system is lapsed 20. It's not a bad idea to maybe add it to something that you do, practice managers. If it gets to be 16, 18 months, you haven't had responses, you can actually print these lapsed customers out of AllyDVM as well and actually give them a phone call or send them a text. Let them know, hey, go ahead and call, you can get the $20 off. Because again, people are not as good at reading emails as they used to be. So this is something to do when you have nothing to do. When you walk in the back and you see a lot of people on their cell phones, hey, why don't you sit down and go through some lapsed customers and, get on AllyDVM and send some text out to these guys and let them know that we'll give them $20 off the appointment. This can be set up as a template as well, so it's really, really easy to do, okay? And then promotional emails. So promotional emails, these are things that you can develop yourself that are specific to your practice. Example might be, maybe you want to highlight a new service. Maybe you just got a new laser therapy machine, or maybe you've started doing rehabilitation, or now maybe we've got ProHeart 12 now. You want to let everybody know that you've got that to offer. So it's just a great way to highlight those special things. Could even be you have a new doctor. You've added a new doctor to the team, and you want to let your let your clients know that you've added this new doctor and, come in and meet them. It could be that you're doing an open house. It's another really good thing to do promotional emails for. So the thing about, promotional emails, be creative. We want you to be creative. We want you to come up with ideas. You just need to make sure that you talk to your regional manager and focus on these marketing strategies that are specific to your practice and get approval through the regional manager before reaching out to Julie. Okay. Once you get that approval, Julie Offer can help you put that together and implement it and get those emails sent out for you about your special promotion. Wellness plans is something too that if you're starting wellness plans, this is typically something that we do for that also. So that concludes our AllyDVM presentation. Thanks, guys, for listening and taking the time to go through this. I just want to reiterate that the things that we've talked about in this presentation are mandatory. So the whole purpose of this presentation was to set up expectations and to give you certain action items that you should be doing every day in your practice. So managers, you need to go ahead and have your receptionist or CSRs or your technicians, anybody that's working in your practice really needs to watch this presentation and be familiar with those expectations as well, because they're ultimately going to be the ones that are actually doing this in your practice. Also want to make sure that if they don't understand how to use the software itself, there are presentations on Pet Vet for You that they can go and watch. You can reach out to your regional. They can help you as well if you're not familiar with the software. Or you can even reach out to AllyDVM support and they can help you as well. So going forward, as a regional manager, my expectation would be if I go into a practice and go behind the front desk where the CSRs are, I should see AllyDVM open on every single computer. I should be able to walk up to any technician and say, hey, show me how you're using AllyDVM. How do you use it here in your practice? And they should be able to pull it up and walk me through things that they've done and things that they're doing. So again, I just can't reiterate enough to you guys how important we think AllyDVM is as a communication tool in your practice. And its usage is mandatory, and we're going to start talking about it on weekly conference calls, and want you to feel comfortable with it and want you to really see some great results in your practice. So if you have any other questions about this, please feel free to reach out to your regional, and I'm pretty confident that you guys will have great results. So thanks for joining, and good luck.